Welcome everyone to the Almost Cancelled TV podcast. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Connor.
Yep. Still, every week it feels like anyway.
I mean, it's only the second episode of the year, but yeah.
Yeah, but even when we don't do one, it still feels like it's every damn week I have to suffer with you.
All right, well, if that's how you feel. This is a TV podcast. We get together and we talk about new show orders, pilots, renewals, cancellations, that kind of thing. We'll get into it today. A very different set of news from last episode. Not nowhere near as many pages in terms of things, but there is some other types of news to get into. So
what did Netflix cancel this week?
Well, we start with renewals, not cancellations. You should know this by now.
I do, but I'm just, it's the more interesting one.
Literally been the format for years.
Yeah, we can shake things up.
So starting off with renewals, we have The Last of Us has been renewed for season 2 at HBO. Not surprising. In fact, I didn't put it in the news as a separate story or anything, but I did see this week that the viewership went up again for episode 3. So it's still rising episode to episode, which is particularly impressive. So very good, not surprising. They got a whole second game to adapt, which they'll get 2 seasons out of, so they're good for a while. And given how long these prestige TV shows take to do a season now, because it's not yearly anymore, it's like a year and a half, 2 years, maybe even longer in some cases, there's a very good chance that the third game will exist by the time they need it for season 4. So
yeah, I did see something the other day. I think it was someone involved in Sony TV actually, talking about how they really want to get back to even prestige TV kind of being more on a yearly cycle, because they're kind of feeling like the way they're looking at it is that the longer gap is actually hurting viewership on some shows when people are coming back. I'm wondering if they're looking at shows like Westworld. Obviously, we feel the quality declined as well, which is more where we're coming from. But I do wonder if there is something to the fact that there's like 2 years between seasons where people are like, I don't know.
I don't know. It's so case by case, because I would argue something like Stranger Things is going up every season, and part of that is the wait and the anticipation of getting the new season. So, and I think there's definitely other examples where the extra wait did not hurt anything.
There's definitely examples of it, but I don't know if I look at it on paper, they might be the rule, like the exception to the rule, right? Whereas, as opposed to something like traditional network TV, where you're 20 plus episodes a season, it's on, nearly half the year in terms of the weeks, and the way they schedule it, it's only really off for a couple of months at a time, and it's really easy just to be with this routine habit. Whereas when a show's 2 years between seasons, it's hard to get that routine.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. Like prestige TV on like HBO or whatever other network, they tend to only have about 10 episodes anyway. So it's not like you're used to it being there over half the year, what you do with network shows. So that same routine element's kind of gone anyway.
It's true. I do wonder as well, though, because a lot of the shows now, they're like 8 to 10 episodes, as opposed to the 13 that you maybe used to have, which maybe doesn't feel like much. But
not in a long time. When was the last time there was a 13 episode show from any of these places? I don't think I've seen one in ages.
No, I agree, but I'm not saying this is a recent development, and I'm not sure whoever it was at Sony is also saying it's a recent thing. I think it's a long-term trend that they're looking at.
That said, though, I think a Sony TV exec saying that they're going to try and shift in direction does not indicate to me that is definitely going to be the case here. And especially given how big budget and how much effort seems to be going into Last of Us Season 1, I do think it'll take probably 2 years for Season 2. Another example recently was Severance Season 1 was last spring. And when asked about when Season 2 was coming, it was like, well, this season took 2 years to make, so see in 2 years was basically the response. So I do think there's a solid chance that Season 4 Last of Us, if they want one, and if it's been successful, you presume they will, and they'll want to turn the third game, which is definitely happening, into later seasons of the show. It's probably going to be a bit of similar size to 2, just because I don't see them going shorter again. It's just not the way games are in franchises. I mean, they could prove me wrong, but typically speaking, I think once they've established that a game is supposed to be 25 to 30 hours, I expect that future entries will probably adhere to a similar length. Maybe not the exact same, but similar. So because of that, I do think that, and especially since we have Neil Druckmann working on both the show and the one who's writing and directing the next game, it makes a lot of sense that even if the third game's not quite out yet when they have to start production or start writing season 4, he's already going to have the scripts for the game out.
100%.
He's going to be like, they'll be at the point where they're doing like tech fixes and fixing bugs, and it'll all be like the last year of development or something like that by the time we get to that stage. So I guess what I'm trying, the whole point of what I'm trying to say is, this is not a Game of Thrones situation where George R.R. Martin, years after the show's finished, still hasn't written the next book. Is what I'm getting at.
I'll be surprised if he's even written half of the next book.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be a case where then you have to worry about a fourth game, because I don't think there's going to be a fourth game. If I was to guess, I think this will be a trilogy, and then
probably
that's it. Because people keep asking about Uncharted, and Neil Druckmann says every time he's asked, that story's done, we're finished. Now Sony might give it to another developer to do a spin-off series or something at some point, but as far as Druckmann and co are concerned, that main story is done. So
I will say as well, something that this last episode established, without any spoilers of course, I think, should it get to a point where they feel like, hey, we're kind of treading water, they could take an extended break and do a spin-off show, kind of like anthology style, and like tales from
the
world of The Last of Us, quite easily.
They very well could do that. And it wouldn't be so much that they're treading water. That would just be a decision they make when they're like, okay, the material's not ready for the next season, so let's do something else first. I could maybe see them doing that, but I don't think they're going to have to worry about that for like. I think that's not a concern at all unless they get to the point where they've done the 3 games, because I'm assuming the third game will be out in the next 4 or 5 years, and I think that's a reasonable enough expectation. Is that
going to be their next game? What was their last one?
Last one was Last of Us. Well, Last of Us Part 1 remake technically, but that was like a quick thing.
Depends if they've got something else in between.
Well, they've got factions, but I think their next single player game is Last of Us Part 3. It definitely sounds like it from all the hints and stuff.
Fair enough. Then.
And to be fair, I think there's probably an incentive if, like, because the show exists and because Druckmann's working on the show and he knows that that story needs to at least be in place for when. And I don't think he's going to want to have those 2 seasons come out, even if he's already written the story for the game. I don't think he wants to adapt that and let people see the show before the game does it first, if that makes sense. I think he'll want his original incarnation to finish the way it was supposed to first, and then adapt.
I agree.
It.
Which is why still it might end up being a case of, hey, let's do something else for a season while we kind of wait for the game to come out, even depending, because HBO's cycle is completely independent to Sony's game publishing cycle. They might decide, this is when this game's coming out. Tough shit. This is when we want it, and we kind of have to delay the TV show a year potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be an issue though, because like I say, I think it's going to take 2 years to make season 2 anyway, and that's only half a game 2. And then it's going to be another 2 years for season 3, and at that point, I don't think there's going to be a dispute, because I think, well, it's really just getting to the point where it's time to make season 4 anyway. So
probably, yeah.
That's my rough guess of the situation. But we'll see how it shapes up. But given how successful it is, I suspect that the Sony and HBO have probably got a very nice. They're probably in good moods with each other right now, and patting each other on the back, and all that stuff. Yeah, Last of Us was fantastic this last week, by the way. Go check out my review that went up. It was excellent.
I will say, I was on record, especially on this news show, as being very cautious. I want to, I never said it looked bad, but I was concerned going in that everything they'd shown pre-release was a very, very faithful adaptation, to the point where I wasn't sure if it was worth having an adaptation, if it's too faithful.
Yeah, all I'll interject with here is that I thought it proved worthwhile in episode 1. I thought all the little things they changed and the things they added to already made it feel like it was worth doing to me, and I was excited from then on. Obviously, episode 3 was a much bigger sort of swing. It was a much bigger, let's take something and reconceptualize it for the TV show because it works better in this format this way.
Yeah, I don't think I quite felt that way that you did with episode 1 or 2. I thought they were good, well-made episodes of TV. I don't want to take that away from it. I still think they're enjoyable. But I did find myself going, okay, it's small. I'm not really gaining too much new from the adaptation in those particular episodes. For me, I think the third one definitely proved its value.
I think the important thing about that third episode, though, and its changes, is that regardless of the major things that it changed about that part of the game, is that its thematic importance to the main character's story was pretty much the same. In terms of like what it's foreshadowing, in terms of what it's like provoking that you think about, it's doing the exact same job. It's just doing it in a different way for a different medium, and I think that's what makes it so special. So, yeah, I'll just say this. This God of War TV show and your Horizon movie that's getting made, like there's a new benchmark for these adaptations now. That
I mean, still not the best video game adaptation.
It absolutely is. What are you even suggesting?
Arcane is better.
No one cares about Arcane. Like
people care about Arcane because
like even if it's got a dedicated following who really love it, you're not arguing to me that it's bigger than the prestige
I didn't
HBO
say bigger,
show.
I said better.
Yeah, well, I think it's better. Okay, what game is it even from?
League of Legends.
Oh god, no, piss off with it. I don't care. No, burn it to the ground. I don't care what it is. Like, it's League of Legends. That doesn't matter how good it is. Burn it with fire. A lot of shit. So anyway, anyway, you're one of these hipsters. There's people. There's people.
That's not hipsters.
No, there was a moment before Last of Us launched where someone on Twitter was like, everyone, all these publications saying it's finally going to break the adaptation, video game curse, and someone's like, but excuse me, the Castlevania anime was really good.
Was pretty good. I'm really looking forward to the next one that we're doing.
Come on, it's not even in the same scale. This has changed the game. Okay, I mean, even if you don't want to argue best, as far as live action goes, nothing even touches this.
I'll give you live action.
Nothing touches this, and I think in general people care more about live action as a populace. I do as a person, but I know as a populace, I think the general public do.
That doesn't mean the general public are right. General public are awful. I'm
not saying they're right, but the point I'm making is that it's a bigger deal. If more people are interested in it and it's getting all the buzz and there's people talking about it, it's easily bigger than all these other examples.
Just want to point out again, I never said it wasn't bigger. I never said it wasn't more widely loved by lots of people. Just that Arcane was better.
I mean, I'm sure that's wrong.
Hey, only one of us here have seen both of them.
Oh, I'll never watch Arcane.
Exactly, so you can't have an informed opinion.
It's never changing.
As the one here with an informed opinion, Arcane is better.
Yeah, well, you didn't like Chernobyl, so your opinion is compromised. We can't take your word for anything. I finally
saw someone else on Twitter, like someone relatively notable, with a reasonable following, that is interested in and kind of critiques media in general, that wasn't big on Chernobyl. I'm like, oh my god, I feel validated that I'm not the only person.
Okay, there's two of you.
There's two of us now.
There's two of you in the entire planet.
We're growing.
All right, so that was the first renewal. Last of Us got renewed. Look, I'm very opinionated on the show. I love it, and news of it is going to be relevant. And the fact that Connor's having to eat crow and admit that it's very good is enjoyable. So
again, never said it wouldn't be good.
Well, no, but it still proved you wrong because you were saying, is it worth the adaptation? And you had to eat crow after episode 3. So regardless, I've enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it's still not as good as Arcane, though.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You brought up Westworld. This is me looking at the paper and going, this means nothing to me. Like, it legitimately means nothing to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Netflix did renew something this week. They renewed. Apparently it's a hit. Also probably quite cheap to make. That 90s show got renewed for season 2.
That makes sense. Not that I've seen anyone talk about it, but it makes sense that it's...
I guess enough people wanted to watch it for the cameos of the old cast members, and aside from the one who's currently on trial for rape, except that one, but everyone else came back, I think, for a cameo.
I didn't even see any reviews for it. I don't know if it was enjoyed. I literally saw nothing. I didn't even realize it was out.
Do you know what it feels to me? It feels like something that was created by AI. It was like, okay, reboot old show, put in some cameos, market it, enough people will click on it, make bank. But I don't see any passion. I don't see anyone really caring about it. And I never liked that 70s show that much, so I didn't care enough to even look at it.
Yeah, I don't really care either way. I didn't even realize it was out because I've seen nothing at all from anyone, good or bad.
Yep. Anne Rice's Mayfair Witches somehow got renewed for season 2 at AMC. One of the more baffling renewals I've seen in the past couple of weeks.
I assume you were forced to watch that?
I was forced to watch the first episode, and it was... Do you know the sad part is that there was there was a central theme that I thought, you know what, there's like a good skeleton to the story, but it's all too, you know, we have to be appealing to a certain sort of like audience, and
which is not you.
Which is definitely not me.
Well, here's the question: was it like objectively bad, and that's why you're surprised that it got renewed, or is it just it was so not for you that you're shocked that other people can enjoy it?
I mean, it's an AMC show, and I think you know what I mean when I say that.
I do, yeah.
It's just very bland, but it has some spookiness, and it has Alexander Daddario, which I guess was enough for...
I'm sold.
2 big reasons to watch it right there. 1923 got renewed for season 2 at Paramount Plus. This is one of the Yellowstone...
This is the prequel, yeah. Was this not a limited series? At one point.
I think it was, but apparently the way it ended, it was because the article when I read about the renewal said, if you were upset with kind of how open that ended, just don't worry, it's getting a season 2. And apparently the creators like, yeah, like the whole story needs 2 seasons. So they never just, I don't know if they were just lying about it before, but this is the Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren one, so they got big cast members coming back for a second season.
Yeah,
that's something. Yeah. So that's part of the Yellowstone televisual universe, the YTU,
which I do kind of want to watch. Although I have heard the main show has kind of spinning some wheels and is losing it a little bit towards the last season. Although there seems to be a disconnect where people who were fans of the show from the start before it kind of got like acclaim, you know, and before critics kind of picked up on it, tend to be the ones that are down on it, whereas critics just kind of coming into it, especially in the in the last couple of seasons where it's kind of blown up a bit, still seem to be pretty hot on it. So I wonder if it's just hipsters being like, oh, my thing's not cool anymore because everyone likes it, so I can't like it anymore.
Very possibly. I don't know. Like I have no gauge of what the quality of it is. I mean, is it possible that it's become more for a general audience and they don't like that, which is something where I'd side with the people who liked it to begin with? Or is it a case of it was trashier and has gotten better, but the things that those original audience liked it for, they don't like that it's actually gotten better quality? But they wouldn't say that way, obviously, but that's from an outsider's perspective.
It's changed, yeah. Which I'm sure it has changed over 5 or 6 seasons, whatever it is, because any TV show does change over that period.
Yeah. Next up, Amazon have renewed the Terminal list for season 2. This is the one starring Chris Pratt. Other than that, I couldn't tell you anything about it. But they also have greenlit a prequel show starring Taylor Kitsch, who's in the regular show, but he's going to do a prequel season.
Yeah, this is clearly what the people want.
Oh, they're gagging for it. So we'll talk about this more later when we get to the new dramas, but Amazon are all about the multi-show, the shared universe malarkey. Like they really want to get into that stuff.
Of course they do. Who doesn't?
Night Court's been renewed for season 2 at NBC. This, of course, is the reboot of the old show, but it's apparently been a big hit. But I think it was one of the headlines was saying, the new boom for like multi-camera sitcoms. Apparently, between this and something and a couple, like there's actually kind of like some successful multi-camera sitcoms on right now. So, and it's been a little while since that's been the case. Now, does that mean they're good? I'm not sure. I've not checked it out, but canned laughter to me, like, it doesn't bother me when I'm watching something from the 80s or 90s because it's just that was of its time. I don't know if it's because canned laughter inherently I just can't get through anymore, or if it's just because all the shows that I tried to watch with canned laughter like in the late 2000s and early 2010s were just bad, and that's why it didn't work for me. But
it's possible.
So that's the Night Court renewed for season 2. CBS renewed So Help Me Todd for season 2.
I remember enjoying that title.
I saw the trailer because it was like up for the pilot vote. No, it didn't, do well enough to get done, but it's it looked a sort of, light drama, comedy kind of show.
Yeah.
And then you got Fox have renewed The Cleaning Lady for season 3. This is about the lady who cleans up things for the mob.
Yep.
So that's cool. And then the last renewal we've got here is Hemp Monkey. The animated series has been renewed for season 2 at Hulu. This is a Marvel show. And do you know what's funny?
This is.
The only reason why I know it's a Marvel show without like having to check is because Hitmonkey got added to Marvel Puzzle Quest, which I do play occasionally on my tablet when I'm on the toilet seat. So the amount of obscure Marvel characters I've learned about just because they pop up in that game is like, who is this? Who's this?
I haven't played that in like 6 weeks, maybe longer.
Yeah.
But I was playing. Last I played it was near the start of the Black Panther season.
Because there's something I'm looking at, like, who's this mermaid looking chick? I'm assuming you're related to Namor, but like I don't know. Like I'm just gonna have to assume. There's characters like that. But anyway, so that's your renewals. On to the cancellations. And we're definitely in that season for renewals and cancellations because we had a lot last time and there's quite a number. That was a lot of renewals for 1 week on here.
It was, yeah.
First up, Pennyworth, The Origins of Batman's Butler has been cancelled after season 3 on HBO Max.
I mean, I'm surprised it got this long.
Fair.
But once it got folded into HBO Max, I think it was dead. Like a lot of other things, I don't think it was specific to just this.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Doom Patrol and Titans, they did actually they got like 3 seasons at HBO Max. Like obviously, there's a difference between HBO Max before the last year and then HBO Max now, which is Bloodbath City.
That is true, but this got folded more recently. This only had 1 season on Max, right?
Yeah, the first 2 were on Epics, I would say.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So there's that. Kindred got cancelled at FX after 1 season. This was kind of an interesting time travel show I saw the pilot of, but it was kind of, it involved a modern day black woman getting sent back in time to slavery times, and sort of like going back and forth time traveling. So it's quite a heavy show. Like I watched the first episode, thought this is all right, and I could see some potential in it, but I also felt like I don't know if I want another heavy show that deals with this topic because it feels like there's been a few that have kind of touched upon that in the last few years, and I just wasn't really feeling like a sort of a miserable hour of TV like that every week. And maybe enough people felt that way since FX have decided not to renew it. And then Hulu have cancelled Reboot after 1 season. This was the show that was about making a reboot of an old sitcom.
I remember thinking the trailer looked better than I would have expected.
Yeah, the trailer looked kind of funny. Yeah. So that's done. Disney Plus have cancelled The Mysterious Benedict Society after 2 seasons.
Okay, I don't know what that one is.
It's got Tony Hale in it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he's running like a kind of like a school for like gifted kids who have got like powers or something. I don't know.
Sounds like a Disney show.
Yeah. Next up, Showtime have cancelled both American Gigolo and Let the Right One In, and this sort of goes hand in hand with Showtime now merging with Paramount Plus.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it's changed the name again.
They can't, because not only did they change the name already, like I saw, like when I went to the movies at Christmas, because Paramount Plus is launched all over the world now, there was literally an ad for Paramount Plus where it was like a Paramount Plus with a montage of.
I hate it so much.
I know, it was really cringy. But they've been like, would it not be hilarious if they feel like they have to change the name in the US because of this merger, but the rest of the world has Paramount Plus now? Like they're not going to change. Like why would they change it everywhere else? I think the smart thing to do is just to keep it as Paramount Plus. But apparently the weird thing about this merger is that it's both the streaming and the network. So technically the Showtime channel will become like the Paramount Plus channel. Then it'll share some content. So maybe you could compare it to HBO and HBO Max, but it feels kind of like stuff will premiere on the channel, but then it'll instantly be on the service or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But part of all this is that they're, I guess, like gutting a lot of the things they had at Showtime that don't fit the new portfolio that they want. Sadly, it does sound like it means they're probably going to make half as many things because now it's just one thing rather than 2 things.
Yeah.
And Paramount Plus's shows are doing better thanks to Yellowstone and Star Trek. So
not Halo though.
Oh, definitely not Halo. You like talk about bad video game adaptations. No one seems to like that piece of shit.
No, I can't think of anyone. I never actually got around to trying it.
Nah, I mean, I
don't want to hate watch it at some point though.
I didn't like it at all, but like that's not surprising for me. But the fact that like fans of the game were all angry about changes, I didn't think it worked on its own. yeah, the complete polar opposite of like what the first episode of Last of Us does, like for a new audience. All right, and then after that, we got The Blacklist is ending with its upcoming 10th season on NBC. So
Jesus, I got to 10.
Pretty good run. I actually didn't realize this. It was just when I was reading about the cancellation that the lead actress actually left in season 8, or I don't know if she left at the end of season 8 or the start of season 8, but around there she left along with the showrunner. But James Spader, who was the guy with all the clues, stuck around. That said, though, I don't know how long that because that was the premise of the show at the start, is that he wanted to work with the main character because he knew her father, or he is her father, but he's really shady, but he's going to help her solve crimes, but be all mysterious about it. I don't know how long they kept that going before it had to change. It must have changed slightly at some point to sort of just be like, how is he still knowing more things to help? Yeah,
his information broke.
Yeah, whatever. It had to evolve at some point. So technically, this one's also a renewal, but it's also a cancellation. So I put it in the cancellations because that's the final part of it. So La Brea
was Blacklist the one that during the pandemic kind of finished its season with the animated thing?
It had an episode that was like half animated or something.
Yeah, I remember it, and it was really janky animation as well, from what I remember seeing.
Which is really weird when you like just wait. You'll be back eventually.
Long term, when people go to rewatch that, like, the 10 seasons of it, there's just gonna be this weird thing at the end of like season 6 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know. So La Brea, which was a terrible show on NBC, it was trying to be like the new Lost, and it had this like mystery element, and it was like a portal opened up in the middle of like LA or wherever, and it sent a bunch of people back into dinosaur times or something like that. And but it was literally just following plot beats from Lost pilot. It was actually kind of funny to watch, like knowing Lost well enough. I was like, this is just a really bad version of that. But it got enough viewership to get a season 2. And technically a season 3, although they confirmed that season 3 is only going to be 6 episodes, so heavily cut down from the 13 or whatever it was getting before. And apparently the reason for this is because the networks are gearing up that there might be some strikes in the next year, so they're planning some shorter seasons to just sort of like preempt and like so it won't mess with the schedule as much as.
Oh, that's kind of shitty.
Yeah, so apparently, there's 3 possible strikes that could happen because the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, and SAG-AFTRA, which is the Screen Actors Guild, all 3 of their contracts are up between May and June.
Oh, they're screwed.
So any one of them could strike.
if it's anything like the UK's been in the last couple of months, expect nothing. Expect no content whatsoever, because just for anyone unfamiliar, we've had post strikes, train strikes, we've had teacher strikes, we've had nurses strikes, we've had ambulance drivers strikes, all in the last like 2 to 3 months.
Yeah. So May 1st is when the Writers Guild contract expires, and then the directors and actors both end on June 30th. So what's so funny is that the Writers Guild could go on strike, they might wrap that up by the end of June, and then the other 2 might go on strike.
I mean, what a time to be alive.
Don't get me wrong, none of them could go on strike. They may all just agree to deals, it may go smoothly, it's possible.
It happens more often than it doesn't.
It doesn't. But you know what? I lived through the 2008 writer's strike, so now I dread it every time it comes up.
Yeah, we had that little one a few years ago, right, where it was kind of really down to the wire.
Yeah, it was like they kept extending the deadline because there were basically like there was lawyers in a room all night, like negotiating.
We can do this. We just need 12 more hours.
Yeah, and they eventually did sort of agree on some terms, and that kind of wrapped up. There was one in the 80s as well, in 1988, give or take, and I learned about this because the writer for Halloween 4 on his commentary track on the old DVD said that the writer's strike was about to start and he had to finish his script before.
It's like, oh, shit, you get what you get.
And yeah, apparently one of the 80s was pretty rough. And you do notice that actually there is a couple. It's not as bad as the 2008 one, but if you go back and look at TV shows from that season, I don't know if it was 87 to 80 or 88 to 89, but whatever season it was, there are some shorter seasons. You know, some shows that would have been 26 episodes only had about 20, which is not that big of a difference compared to what happened in 2008. But
I think it's interesting that if it does happen this time, there'll be a really delayed reaction to when you feel it because of.
It'll be later, yeah.
Because obviously, there's obviously also affect network TV, but that tends to be, at least for us and a lot of our audience, tends not to be what we're mostly watching now.
No, what will probably happen is that it means that, in theory, let's say 3 or 4 months go by with no making cut, which is an extreme amount, but let's say it's that much. It probably means that later on they're going to spread some of the things they had ready over a longer period of time to try and disguise it.
Yeah, I don't think you'll go just a period with nothing like it was in days gone by. I think it'll be more, hey, we'll make this last, so you'll get a show every 6 weeks instead of every 3 weeks. That sort of thing.
Yeah. That said, if you watch, like, say, all 4 FBI shows, everything's coming to a grinding halt, potentially.
Your entertainment's just gone.
Yeah. All right, so let's get on to some other things. We have one premiere, which is for a comedy on Netflix called Unstable. It's coming on the 30th of March. And I've got a description here just because, I didn't think we'd know what this was. So, Unstable follows an introverted son, played by John Owen Lowe, who goes to work for his very successful, wildly eccentric father, played by Rob Lowe. So I'm going to go on a wild leap and say that they're real father and son. In order to save him and his successful biotech company from disaster. It is inspired by Rob and John Owen Lowe's social media relationship, in which John Owen often humorously trolls his dad.
So, I mean, it could be alright.
Yeah. Do we argue that that's family, professional and personal? Is a father going to work with his son?
It is in concept, but it's got to hit the style of saying it. Otherwise, what's the point?
Okay. So I don't have any sort of like general things. We're just going straight into the comedies, but there's like a whole sort of subsection of the dramas that we'll get to in a bit. So new comedies. Fox is developing Guards, a comedy created and starring and executive produced by actor-comedian Noor Davis, with comedy writer Crystal Jenkins. Guards is a single-camera, irreverent comedy with... It said irreverent in the last one as well. I love that word. Irreverent comedy with heart that follows the exploits of a group of eclectic security guards as they protect an affluent gated community. Davis plays a newly hired guard, Lance Lamont, an enthusiastic but reserved rule follower who has a strong desire to protect others, even if it's just with a flashlight. Though he works with his colleagues' nerves, they're bonded by their contempt for the needy, entitled residents and less than stellar boss. So, I can see the as a sitcom premise, I can see it.
Yeah, it's
like a low stakes like security guard who has to deal with a bunch of shitty residents. I can see the comedy.
Take it way too seriously, right?
Yeah. I can see the comedies.
Yeah, there's potential in that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you got that, and then we got Fox are developing a single camera comedy called Rock Camp, from the Goldbergs co-executive producer Steve Basilon and Jeff Rowe and David Fishoff. What a name! It's just fish with OF after it. Fishoff. It could be Fishoff, I suppose, but like. Anyway, who is founder of the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. The project follows a down in his luck rock star who, after a series of screw-ups, begrudgingly goes to teach at Rock Camp, a summer camp where anyone can live out their fantasy of shredding next to their favourite rockers in order to satisfy court mandate and save his reputation.
It's kind of knockoff School of Rock, isn't it? A
little bit.
It's not exactly, but you can see the inspiration.
Yeah, I think eventually, in the same way that eventually you have to accept that you can have a shark movie again, I think after School of Rock, eventually you have to accept there's going to be movies about,
But just because everyone copied a Shark Tale doesn't mean that... I'm so glad that was the reaction I wanted.
You try to crack a joke, Connor, but your judgment and movie knowledge is so debatable.
It was the first non-Jaws shark movie I could think of.
I don't know. I'm just saying people might have actually believed it was possible that you just wouldn't know what Jaws is. That's all I'm saying.
Shark Tale's a classic.
I've never had the pleasure.
Oh wow, Will Smith in all his animated glory as a fish.
Look, There's Jaws, there's Deep Blue Sea. If you're feeling frisky, Shark Attack 3. But that's where you cut it off. You're done there. Oh no, The Shallows was okay. It wasn't a great movie, but it was okay.
It was fine.
Yeah. All right, next up, Patricia Heaton is coming back to sitcom TV. There's no title for this one, but it's a multi-camera comedy from Capital Entertainment. It doesn't mention Aaron Kaplan, but I know.
We know.
Yeah, so it's going to be starring and executive produced by the Emmy winner, Patricia Heaton. Did I say Clarkson before?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
I think I almost said it that second time, so I debated whether or not I said it in my head the first time. Now, Patricia Heaton, she's the actress, the wife from Everybody Loves Raymond, for people who are putting a face to the name.
I'm pretty sure that's what you said the first time.
Anyway, so it was set up at Fox in 2021 with a straight-to-series commitment, but it's now found writers, and they're getting going with it. Comedy writers Carol Leifer and Andy Gorn have been tapped to write the untitled half-hour comedy. And we now have a premise for it. So this might have came up a long time ago in the news, but this is the first time we've had a synopsis for it, so I think it's fair shake to put it in here. Heaton is set to start as the host of an upscale lifestyle show sent to prison for embezzlement and tax evasion. She gets out after 2 years, forgotten and broke, and moves to Tennessee to live with her estranged sister. It doesn't specify that that's like where she came from, so I don't know if that counts as the going home.
There's an implication just because that's where the sister is, but also.
And do you know what's so weird? Is that this is almost two different rules. It's almost the goes home again, and it's almost the because we have the parent moving in with the kid. Yeah. But it's not that because it's a sister.
It's siblings, yeah.
So it's very close to being two of the drinking rules, but not quite on either.
I suspect that it might turn out that this is actually the hometown, and
it might. Yeah, I could see it. Yeah,
but they just haven't given us that context in the description.
Nah, so we can't count it, unfortunately. Yeah. So before we get to the rest of the dramas, I've actually just got a section that I'm referring to DC Comics because there was a lot of DC Comics news this week. Some of it, of course, was movies. I'll mention them briefly at the end just to sort of like be, complete with it. But we're going to focus on the TV properties, obviously. Before we get to the actual big list of announcements, there was like a little bit afterwards about Superman and Lois, where James Gunn was asked, because James Gunn and Peter Safran are the people who are running this new DC universe. They've got this game plan, and they've even got a title for. They're calling it Chapter 1, but to compare it to Marvel, it's their Phase 1. Yeah. Right, that's what it is. But obviously, when all this was coming out, they were asked about Superman and Lois.
Just worth knowing, you mentioned comparing it to Marvel's Phase 1. Mm-hmm. This is a very different approach to what.
Oh no! I only meant that in terms of naming their like periods.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear for anyone who hasn't been following this.
We're going to get into all that. I just want to get a Superman and Lois bit out of the way before I get into it, because he was asked like, is that safe? Like, is that going away? What's happening? Because all these other shows are getting cancelled. Doom Patrol, Titans, and he basically said it's popular and it'll go for another 1 or 2 more seasons. What's really confusing about that answer is that its third season's not started airing yet, so technically it could get cancelled after this season that's already been shooting, and that statement would be correct still, because that was 1 more season.
And ultimately, I think it's not his choice.
Yeah. I think because 1 or 2 more seasons, if it includes season 3, that could mean it'll get a third and maybe a 4th season. If it doesn't include season 3, because that's already done in his mind, then it could be a 4th or a 5th season it gets to. But it could also just be the 3rd season, and that could be it.
It could be.
So,
but like I said, ultimately, I don't think it's up to him, really. It's just CW's decision, really, at the end of the day, isn't it?
Very probably. But I think it's safe to say that he's not factoring Superman and Lois into any of his shared universe plans. I think that's just on its own out there. So yeah, they're calling this Phase 1, Chapter 1, and it's called Gods and Monsters. And it is a shared universe where things are connecting, and it's crossing between movies and TVs. And he's even implied at one point that maybe games would even be included at some point. But I don't think any games that we know about yet are actually included in it. I think that was just like he was asked about it. He said, yeah, that'd be cool to do someday, kind of thing. So there's, I think, 5 TV shows that were kind of like announced. One of them we kind of already knew about, but now it's kind of official and part of this slate. So yeah, Chapter 1's called Gods and Monsters. and it's kind of mixing some of the bigger characters with some lesser characters, and that's in both mediums as well. I would say that there's kind of a mixture of big characters in movies and small characters in movies, and then same with TV. I think there's a nice spread in that sense. What makes this kind of interesting and why it's a little different to Marvel, well, one of the reasons why it's a little bit different to Marvel, is that it does sound like they're going to try and kind of like spin it as if like it's evolved from the current movies, where I don't know if like they're going to try and set up Flash retroactively to kind of change things to be what it is afterwards, because they're still like, when he's asked about it, he's still saying, hey, maybe Ezra Miller could come back, there could be more of that. And
yeah, it depends how much money that movie makes, really, is what he's saying there.
Yeah, the sad part about that is though it's tainted the character of the Flash so much, and I love the Flash, and if that movie sucks or isn't successful, I don't really mind in the sense that I don't think the movie's going to be good, but it bothers me in the sense that it means. But the problem is if it is successful, then they'll want more Ezra Miller Flash.
I hope it's terrible, because they'll still want Flash, because the TV show ran for God knows how many years, and that confirms that it's still
true
popular. And then all it means is we don't want to do Barry Allen again, so let's give him Wally West.
True.
I think we win, but I think we win that way.
That's kind of threading the needle, and I do like it. If that happens, I will be a happy man. I'm just worried that the property in general of the Flash might be tainted for a bit. I am concerned about that.
It is possible, but I'm not overly concerned.
Okay. Well, I'll fill you in the movies at the end of this. I don't have like big quotes for them. I just written down the list because that's not what we're really here to talk about. We're here to talk about TV shows. First up, we got an animated show, or at least partially animated. Creature Commandos is up first. Obviously, this is one of the lesser, characters or properties.
I had assumed this was just fully animated. I didn't read into it.
Well, there's some quotes from Gunn here. There's not really synopsis per se. There's just like a series of quotes from Gunn or whatever when he was interviewed about this.
He just did some speaking and was like, yeah, take what you want.
So it's an animated TV series. Animation will lead into live action and back into animation, said Gunn. So
does he mean specifically in this show, or does he mean? Well,
let me continue. You'll see if it goes up. It's a way to tell stories that are gigantic and huge without spending $50 million an episode. So Gunn's written this. He's finished writing it. It's ready to sort of, go to the next stage. Creature Commandos is comprised of military superhumans, including a human leader, a werewolf, a vampire, Frankenstein's monster, and a Gorgon. Gunn has pointed out that Weasel from his Suicide Squad will be on the show, and people thought that was a fun joke character in the Suicide Squad movie, so yeah, fair enough. So when it says Frankenstein's monster, is that like Frankenstein Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. specifically?
I would have thought so, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I've not read any Creature Commandos, so
I could see this being a fun animated show.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's got a fun romp vibe to it.
Yeah. And this is where I think James Gunn's humor will fit in nicely. I think this type of property with these characters, his sense of humor will just work.
The oddballs.
Yeah. That'll just work. And he's already done with Suicide Squad. And I've not finished Peacemaker. I've got 2 episodes left, but it's pretty entertaining. It's funny. The characters are likable, and I'm laughing frequently enough. The plot's just kind of whatever, but everything else about it's kind of fun.
Makes sense.
So that's that. On Peacemaker, actually, the second show is Waller, which is kind of a spin-off of Peacemaker. So same actors. It's a continuation of Peacemaker. Gunn himself is writing the Superman movie. More on that in a little bit. So he's not doing, so they're not doing Peacemaker season 2. So they're doing Waller in between, which implies that he wants to do Peacemaker season 2, and it did get renewed, but it's on the back burner until he's done writing Superman. And so, because I presume that means that he's not as hands-on with Waller. He's guiding
that
it.
Definitely sounds like the implication that he'll maybe set it up, but then someone else will take on the actual writing duties.
Because Peacemaker, he directed all 9 episodes, so he was very much just making that.
That takes time.
Yeah. So, Crystal Henry from The Watchmen. I don't know if it's from The Watchmen. I don't know who this actor is. I don't know if this is an actor from the movie or the TV show Watchmen, but it says from Watchmen. Is writing the show along with Jeremy Carver, who's the creator of Doom Patrol, funnily enough. Well, none of the movies are going to be rated R. The TV shows could lean into more adult sort of rated material. So yeah, makes a bit of sense. Waller could get darker.
Makes sense, yeah, and also less punishing on the bottom line to have R-rated TV than it is movies.
And that, I mean, don't get me wrong, if it's a huge hit, maybe they'll want more of it, but it sounds like it's kind of planned as a one and done, and then they could always do more if they want to, but...
Yeah, and with it being Waller, that makes sense. You can just tell a new story with her at any point, really.
Yeah, she's just manipulating other villains, basically.
She just does her shtick.
Yeah. Then we have Lanterns, and this is one we kind of knew about before. And we'd actually even already heard the news that it was changing, and this is basically just reconfirming what it changed to.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. I think it was just last week we were talking about how allegedly there was all these DC shows in production, and we were like, yeah, we'll believe it when we see them. This is just confirming that a lot of those that we had heard about seem to have gone, really.
Yeah, the only exception to this, and it is mentioned in the longer article, I've not written it down here, but like, you know, the stuff that's in development is tied to the Matt Reeves Batman stuff is still in development, and that's just separate from this slate. It's not a part of this kind of thing. So Lanterns is the Green Lantern TV show. But did I think it's more prestigious sounding just calling it Lanterns? Because I kind of wish it was just called Green Lanterns. Like, why are we hiding it? I don't know. I just...
Unless there's an implication that they'll be showing lots of non-Green Lanterns as well.
True. I suppose that's fair. So it's a HBO Max live action series. The vision for this is basically True Detective with Green Lanterns. Safran says it's terrestrial based. It's got two of our favorite Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. It plays a really big role in the main story that we're telling across our film and television. So this is going to be central to the overall Gods and Monsters plot, if you will. It's a very important show for us, he said. So
Double-edged sword for me, this, because I think, for just, out of the way, this sounds great. All more for it. I like everything they said there. It's a little bit disappointed about the other show, which, from what I remember, was more space-focused.
Yeah, and also it was a more interesting combination, because it was like Alan and... Was it Guy who was the other one? I think it was like a weirder combo of like lanterns.
Yeah, there was three of them. Well, I think there was Alan, Guy, and John, maybe?
Something like that.
Yeah, and that sounded more interesting to me.
Do you know,
this definitely doesn't sound... I like everything about this still, just not as much, I would say.
I don't know if I necessarily want the tone of True Detective in this, but if they mean that they're going to play with the narrative and how it tells its story like True Detective, and also that it's kind of like a buddy cop kind of thing, that's fine. Like that all makes sense to me.
I saw someone joking that, hey, King in Yellow. Green Lanterns are weak against yellow. True Detective. Just that was the thought process.
That was the logic, was it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it.
And as far as this being like central to the overall story, I will say I kind of like the sense of focus that, because it feels like there's clear things that they've picked and there's a focus. Some of it feels less important than others. Like I can't imagine Waller feeling that important to the overall story, but they're specifically saying that this is. I do kind of like that if enough of this stuff is good and I get excited about this shared universe that they're going to try and build, and I hope I want to be into it, I want to be excited by it. I hope that it really does feel like, okay, there's a show that's designed to be the backbone like this, that's kind of setting up the overall, like, what if they were investigating a crime that's building to the main big villain that we're going to get at the end of the phase, you know?
I will say that on paper, at least, I like more about this shared universe so far, potentially, than what how I feel about a lot of the Marvel one right now.
Oh, absolutely, because
on paper, this all sounds very like they're tonally different projects.
Yes, it also sounds very focused in that they know what each project is adding to the overall puzzle, and that there's an end game for it kind of in mind. Now, admittedly, I'm not so sure if the things they've announced are the ending of it, and maybe that's kind of the point, is that it's going to be chapter 2 where you get your big team up or Justice League or whatever they're going to do. But this at least feels a bit fresher to me, and I've not been into any of the Phase 4 stuff from Marvel. I did enjoy Endgame and Infinity War, but I was already kind of out in the general MCU movies before that point. Those two were just kind of, they were just better, but also just because it was kind of this conclusion to all the stuff that I had enjoyed earlier on for one reason or another. But it was kind of like an natural ending point, and I feel like all of Phase 4, anything I've seen from it just feels kind of directionless and like it's spinning its wheels. And there's kind of like a formula to the movies. I really hope.
Phase 5 starts soon.
Yeah, I doubt I'm going to see any of it, to be honest. But so I really hope, and for the record, I'm not really planning on seeing any of the DC movies that are coming out before this stuff really either. Maybe if they say Flash is important, I'll eventually see it at home just to fill in the blanks, just to see.
Yeah, I have no plans to see it. I will say just very briefly, props to Marvel for the Ant-Man tie-in book, because that is merchandising at its best. I don't know if you've seen this.
No, what is it?
They have got a fictional in-world autobiography memoir thing by Scott Lang, but like as like an actual book that they've published in reality.
Okay.
And they've got the audiobook. I think they've got Paul Rudd to narrate the audiobook and read his memoirs as Scott Lang. And honestly, I just love that they've made it for real. Like, I think that's commitment to the bit.
All right, so that's Lanterns anyway. So next up is Paradise Lost. Now this is an interesting one. So this is another HBO Max live show. This is I meant live action there. I just said live show. It's not live. They're not broadcasting live. It's going to be...
That's your reality show.
Yeah. So they're describing this as a Game of Thrones-ish story set in Themyscira, which, fair enough, right? I get the appeal of doing that. The home of the Amazons and the birthplace of Wonder Woman. This drama is really about the political intrigue behind the society of all women. How did that come about, says Saffron. What's the beautiful truths and ugly truths behind all of that? And what's the scheming like and all the power plays in that society? Added James Gunn. So this all takes place before the birth of Diana. Now, my question, this one's weird to me, because like, is there any intention of ever bringing back the version of Wonder Woman that was seen in the Wonder Woman movies? Is this supposed to be a prequel to that stuff? Or is this like a sort of soft, like, we're just doing Themyscira and then later we'll reveal our new Wonder Woman for the new movies?
I suspect once we see the artistic design for this, just like if it's following design cues from those movies, because they had a very clear sense of what Themyscira was, right, in those movies. I think if this follows that kind of visual style, I would assume that this is kind of still... those movies are still, relatively speaking, canon, right? If it's a departure from those movies, I would say, yeah, they're probably just looking at doing something new.
Yeah. For the record, I hope that it is completely fresh and that we're just burning everything to the ground that came before. Even though parts of some things were okay, fresh start. I don't think anything from the previous universe is worth keeping around, quite frankly. That's my stance on it. So I'm not saying it ruins it if they do keep it at anything, but like I'm just if I was picking, that's the choice I'd be making. Yeah. Next up and last up in the TV projects is Booster Gold, HBO Max TV show.
Yeah, boy.
About a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to today and pretend to be a superhero. I like that description. A loser from the future. That is the perfect description for Booster Gold.
They don't mention it, but Booster and Skeets, just kind of that banter is going to be so good.
Oh yeah. Oh, Skeets will that's just part of Booster Gold's like.
It has to be. Obviously, they don't mention him, but yeah.
Yeah. James Gunn described it as imposter syndrome as a superhero. Fun idea. It's definitely an unconventional pick. I think even just look at the TV shows, I think you look at these and you go, okay, something connected to Wonder Woman, which is very popular recently. Green Lantern's kind of a big part of DC that, it got a movie in 2011, but it kind of flopped. But it's like, I think you've got the Trinity at DC, and then the next two things after that are Flash and Green Lantern. And Flash has had its TV show on network TV. It's getting its weird movie that's kind of like, not really a Flash movie, but whatever. Green Lantern's the one that feels like it's been the least touched, and it's been forgotten about the longest time. So I like that being the pillar.
I know during this, Gunn also made some comments about the Trinity kind of being those pillars that they kind of base everything around and kind of expand out from that, which is why I think we have a Wonder Woman adjacent project here to kind of anchor this TV kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get to do Creature Commandos, Booster Gold. I won't quite count Waller, because Waller's kind of a spin-off from something else that was already fairly successful, but I think Creature Commando and Booster Gold, I think those are kind of like, okay, these are the riskier ones that we'll do alongside the other stuff and hope they take off. And people start making memes, like, I mean, look at how big the boys has got.
Booster Gold is going to be memeable as shit.
If Booster Gold can hit into some of that, what do we call him from the boys? Homelander. Like, if he gets some of that Homelander gifable qualities to him, then, in fact, he probably should look like Homelander. Not the outfit necessarily, but you know what I mean. Like, you put that Booster Gold outfit on Anthony Starr. Tell me that doesn't just look like Booster Gold.
Also, he would be a great Booster.
Oh yeah, he's fine. He's got comic timing.
To be fair, he does, and he's a great actor in general. So he'd be a great a lot of things. Obviously, they'll get someone else, and that's fine.
Oh yeah, I don't want him to be it because obviously it's too similar.
He'd be great because he's great.
Well, the characters aren't similar, but you know what I mean. It's like I don't want him to do another superhero thing. Like do other more interesting things. Anyway, but just to sort of wrap this up, the movie's going along with this. There's 5 movies they announced. Superman Legacy, which Gunn's writing. Unknown if he's going to decide to direct it. What's so funny about that one is that I don't think that Gunn's would be my first choice, God's sense of humor, but I don't necessarily mean to say though I don't trust him to get Superman. In fact, one of the things they said in the description, which it's amazing that we're still not really done this in a Superman movie yet, is that it's looking through like, okay, Superman's trying to be this goody two shoes in a modern cynical world, and that's very much what they're going to try and explore. If they can nail that, then it might very well be the best Superman movie. Like, if they can nail that, yes.
It's super interesting to me, like, that this is... So, okay, you got the name Legacy, right? Which which has its own kind of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, but it's actually a young Superman, right? Is what they're saying.
Yeah.
But also it's very heavily inspired / based on All-Star Superman, which is definitely not a young Superman. That's like peak Superman.
That's true. Well, I mean, obviously they're doing their own thing. I'm sure they'll be...
They are. It's such a interesting mishmash of kind of ideas.
But it's not an origin, though. They did say it wasn't an origin, and that's smart because we don't need it.
We don't. No one needs that.
So that's there. We have The Authority, which is one of their weirder, sort of, lesser known properties that they're doing.
Which is one that I'm slightly more skeptical about because it's one of those kind of edgy Justice League teams, right? Essentially, like from like that late 90s stuff where we I think it's very typical. I think it's a very typical James Gunn property and it is the one that feels kind of at home for him, but also it's kind of competing with something like The Boys right now. Yeah,
the two thoughts that come to mind with that is that one, if it's a success, it'll catapult what the Authority's like prestige is, and all of a sudden there'll be an Authority comic book again, because I mean there probably will be just for the movie coming out, but if it's a big hit and people love it, then there'll be comics from the Authority forever, in the same way that past a certain point there's always a Harley Quinn comic book. Once you reached a certain point of popularity, now all of a sudden there's just always going to be a Harley Quinn book because it's always going to sell. The other thing on that is that maybe the point of having kind of a shittier Justice League is much like I think looking at looking at Superman the way they described, I can see almost some meta commentary about how the last movies handled Superman in that. I can kind of see this also doing that with just the heroes in general. And I can also see that, again, if all this is weaving together and that they're building some sort of big bad for later, that in chapter 2 there'll be an actual like Justice League taking on, maybe the real villain like kills them all at the end or something like that. Maybe they fail.
It's possible.
Or something. I don't know.
This is the one that I'm probably the most cautious about, because again, it's very like I say, it's this commentary on superhero teams, Justice League specifically in this case, and I feel like I want a good Justice League film first before we start doing the commentary on that. But that's not to say it won't be a good movie. Just I'm inherently less excited for this one.
It's probably the one that I'm least excited for as well, especially since we've not had a good Justice League yet. But I mean, if they give me a good Justice League in Phase 2, then I'm not going to care that much in hindsight. Once we get the good movie, I'm just like, whatever, we got a good Justice League, I don't care now. Brave and the Bold, and this one's kind of interesting because this is the DC Universe version of Batman. So the Matt Reeves Batman 2 is still happening. That's been
they're just calling it Batman Part 2, right?
They are, yeah. And that's coming. That's coming late 2025, I think they said. So
sounds right.
This is going to be the in-universe Batman and Damian Wayne, and it kind of hinted that it's probably going to be like when Damian first is around.
I don't know if it was in the interview or if it was like tweets that followed up later, but Gunn kind of was like, hey, these are some of the comics that we're heavily drawing inspiration from, and he kind of highlighted Batman and Son.
Yeah,
so Batman and Robin and stuff.
So it's interesting. It's called Brave and the Bold. Obviously, it leaves it open for more like Bat family members and stuff to show up. But and I mean, I like that they're doing Damien. I mean, my only worry is that they're going to skip over any of the other characters that are supposed to be before Damien for to streamline it, and that's a little bit of a shame for some of them. Not Jason, but the rest of them it is.
Yeah.
But other than that, I do appreciate. Do you know what my favorite part of it is? Is that I love that he said, "Batman and Son" by Grant Morrison. That is the influence. All-Star also by Grant Morrison. All-Star Superman. That is the influence for this story.
And some of the ones he mentioned specifically as well. We'll get to.
Yeah, I was just going to get to the other ones, but yeah.
I love the fact that, like I say, he's outright just saying, no, these are the stories.
Yeah. Like, and obviously there's going to be changes.
Those comics are selling now all of a sudden.
Yeah. And obviously there's going to be changes. There's going to be like things they add on to fit into the universe because it's taking place in a different part of the timeline than it did in the comic books. But the idea that he's saying, these are the influences, this is the story that we're kind of using as a basis, actually is the best thing about all these announcements to me, is that it feels like, okay, we're actually adapting specific stories, obviously with changes to make them fit together, because, all these stories take place late on in the careers of a lot of these superheroes, where in the movies, I'm assuming that it's all going to be relatively early in their careers, because it's going to be a fresher universe, but,
probably,
then we get Swamp Thing, and notably, there's a director sort of, I don't know if he's attached yet, but he's in talks for.
Yeah, and it's a good director too.
Yeah, James Mangold, who did Logan, and what did he do recently that was well received?
Ford v Ferrari, I think, right? Is that him?
Yeah, I think he did do that, but that's not what I was thinking of.
He's got the upcoming Indiana Jones.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, they're all saying Indiana Jones 5. That's what they're saying about him.
All right. Ford v Ferrari was great though.
That was a solid. No, that's Ron Howard, you tit.
He did a movie similar to that then, surely. I'm sure he did something along those lines.
No, I think you're right. I think Rush is Ron Howard. I think I'm
Rush
mixing,
is Ron Howard, yeah.
I'm mixing the two car movies up. Sorry. I retract my tit comment. I'm sure you'll earn it again soon, but for now I retract.
Probably, but not for this particular one.
I retract for now.
It's very rare.
No, obviously I love Swamp Thing as a character. I would love, and the annoying thing about that TV show that was on HBO Max, or actually not,
it being shit.
Sorry, it was DC Universe at the time, not HBO Max.
It was,
I correct myself.
It didn't air on CW later after.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was, in fact, it was really bad. But the one thing I'll say is that Swamp Thing himself looked perfect, and
100%.
So keep the look and make a good movie. And Mangold did tweet out a Swamp Thing panel on his Twitter, sort of confirming the stories and showing that he gives a shit. So I would be shocked if this is not based on some prime Alan Moore Swamp Thing.
I think this is another one where it was pointed towards the Alan Moore run. I think I'm sure it was in a James Gunn tweet.
See if they capture the mood of that Swamp Thing run in a movie, I will freaking love it. Like I will love it if it captures that mood. And this is so different to all these other properties so far, which I really like. And I love how comic booky Brave and the Bold sounds as well, to be honest. That's another good thing. And then the last movie is a Supergirl movie. Now, I don't think they officially call the movie this, but it's based on Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow by Tom King, which is a book that I read and liked a lot. And it's not even that old a book. It only just finished like a year ago.
Last year? Yeah.
It was early last year that it finished his 8-issue run. And the irony of this is I just learned this actually in the last couple of days. Apparently, it was pitched as a 12-issue book, like most of Tom King's like prestige books are. And it got declined because it didn't get declined, but it got cut down to 8 because they didn't think it would sell enough to justify. And what's so funny about that is that in the last couple of days since these announcements came out, the trade paperback, the book that you can buy of the entire collection, has sold out on Amazon and multiple other places. And that's true for some of the other stories that these are based on as well. But that Supergirl one's particularly funny. And do you know what I do appreciate? Because I like Supergirl as a character a lot. And I would never have predicted in this opening batch of movies, if there was a Superman movie, that there'd also be a Supergirl movie. And
if there was, would you expect it to be this?
Probably not. So I love that this is the space adventure Supergirl story. It's going to be true grit in space with Supergirl. That's cool. Yep. That's very different to the other movies, which is great. But I also just love it is that because I'm a fan of the character, I love that she gets another chance when I didn't think there would be. I didn't think she'd get a movie anytime soon.
I didn't either. And I was sure if they did, it would be more likely to be something like Supergirl being Super that would get adapted, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was always a chance that the one that's going to be in the Flash movie would get like something afterwards. And I have nothing against that actress, but because I like that movie is so tainted to me from like so many different reasons. Like between, I mean, let's not even get into the actors' hijinks. I'm just talking about the weird concoction it is, the fact that it's not really a Flash movie. Like really, we're doing like Flashpoint before we just do the Flash fights the Rogues or the Flash fights, Reverse Flash or Gorilla Grodd. He's got a whole Rogues gallery to go through, and we're just going straight to
but
that
it's fine
box.
because Michael Keaton.
Oh, but I don't give a shit about Michael Keaton as Batman. I really don't.
I know. You do. Just real quickly, I found the tweet from Gunn.
Okay, go.
So he just said, "Oh, we've talked a lot about Woman of Tomorrow, but these are more of the comics inspiring, these movies in the early days. It doesn't mean we're adapting all these comics, but the feel, the look, or the tone of them are touchstones for the team. Check them out."
Okay, that's good.
Then he included images of All-Star Superman, the Authority Omnibus, the Batman by Grant Morrison Omnibus, Volume 1, and Absolute Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. Those are the 4 images he included.
Yeah.
So those are what you can be expecting.
I think with Superman, I do not expect an adaptation of All-Star Superman. I think that's one that's more about the feel and how it...
Tone of it, yeah.
Whereas I can see Swamp Thing being more of a straight adaptation of like part of Alan Moore's run.
Could well be. But if, at the very least, you can, I understand what they're going for in the tone and direction just from kind of putting that image out.
And I won't be mad if it's not, but it feels like they could just take the structure of that and turn it into a movie. And I think Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is such a specific thing to reference that
it is, yeah.
It feels like, well, at the very least, you're doing a space adventure. And honestly, yeah, give me Supergirl True Grit in space. I'm all for it. Why not? So, yeah.
Yeah. It's something.
I mean, I am relatively optimistic as a DC fan about these announcements. Obviously, we talked about the movies a bit there. It was impossible not to. But the TV shows, Creature Commandos could be good. Waller could be good. But I'm not super excited about those. Paradise Lost and whatever. It's Lanterns and Booster Gold. I like Lanterns is the one I'm most excited about, and then Booster Gold kind of is a secondary one. I could see being quite special as a more comedy orientated thing. But here's hoping.
Yeah.
Here's hoping for good stuff.
And then, John, we've still got on top of it. Obviously, we mentioned the Batman Part 2, but we've got whatever the weird Joker sequel is going to be as well. Which
I don't care about that.
I know, but I respect the hell out of them doing just different things and not adhering to everything must be in this universe. Right?
Sure, yeah. Do you know what? I will say I hope Brave and the Bold's more comic booky in the sense that this can be the Batman that has Mr. Freeze and Clayface and all that other shit. Like, the Batman's doing the grounded, like real life gritty thing, and I love that. But I want a version that has all the other shit in it. So
I'm going to enjoy the other one a lot more because I didn't really love the Batman, unfortunately.
I mean, I did love it.
I wanted to like it more, but it didn't really do a lot for me in the end. Anyway,
let's get on to the other news. We got dramas to talk about. First up, Amazon Studios has hired Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's did Fleabag and Killing Eve, to develop a potential Tomb Raider TV show. And they're hoping to make it as part of a Tomb Raider universe that will span television, film, and games.
Every goddamn time.
I know. So the TV show specifically is from being developed by Waller-Bridge, and she's also could be involved in a potential movie, although that's not confirmed as of yet. So, yeah, do you know what's so weird about this? Is that I get wanting to do another crack at a Tomb Raider movie, or potentially a show if you want to do a show instead. I could see it working as a TV show, potentially. Mm-hmm. And obviously it makes sense that they've got Crystal Dynamics who made the games anyway, making another game in the franchise, because why wouldn't you? But it's interesting, and I'm not even against the idea that the new game and the new movie or TV show could be set in the same world and maybe reference each other, and it's just one's an interactive story with Lara that you've played, and then that's referenced a little bit in the movie or TV show. That's fine, or the other way around, whatever way works. But movies and TV? Like, there's one character from Tomb Raider that you follow, and her name is Lara Croft. What is the... Like if she's
the only way this ever works, because for a start, it doesn't, right? To have these cross media platforms, they've never worked. They keep trying them. They always fall apart. Like, do you remember the Dark Tower universe that they were gonna do?
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Well, no, I'm assuming that from this, like, either the movie or the show is the Lara Croft, like, adventures, right? And the other thing is more of, like, a spin-off about someone else in the universe. But, obviously, I don't necessarily think that's that exciting at this point.
Butler in the fridge.
I don't think that's that exciting because name me one other character from Tomb Raider that's not Lara Croft.
Butler in the fridge.
They're not making a TV show about Butler in the fridge. What are they going to do?
Might be. Alfred's been cancelled.
I don't know what the butler's name is, but you know, the name and then just colon the butler in the fridge.
I'd watch it.
Which is not canon, for the record. We all did it to him in Tomb Raider 2, but it wasn't canon.
Yeah, everyone did it. But look, if it was me doing this, I would have them both be Lara Croft.
Sure.
And hear me out. I'd basically have the TV show be, you know, my TV show, but as usual. And I would have the movie kind of in between seasons every so often as just, here's the big spectacle kind of.
With a bigger budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Given what you've just said there, what I'm thinking is that the show, it follows Lara and we're doing some adventuring and some action and stuff, but the actual big, like, story of her getting into some big tomb that needs a budget will be the movie. So you only do that for the movies in between seasons or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm even thinking something, I mean, very specific, but you know, like what they've been doing with like Doctor Who in the last, you know, they did it for the 50th anniversary where it's a TV show, right? But they had this like, okay, feature length special and we're going to show it in cinemas.
Okay.
And it was essentially a movie.
I mean, if you put it like that, then I can see maybe how it works. I mean, the plot has never been what's been that exciting to me about Tomb Raider anyway, so they're kind of free to do whatever. All you really need is to have a good Lara Croft, have it feel like she's doing things like the game, so you're jumping, climbing, you know, sneaking around bad guys, whatever. Nail that, and then the story's kind of whatever. But, yeah, so... I don't know. So every so often we get one of these things where, okay, we're going to build a shared universe out of this property. I was like, but that's a property surrounding one character. Like, what's the shared universe? Are you going to introduce like new characters into the story just to spin off into their own thing? Because
hey,
that
James
usually
do it with Peacemaker.
Yeah,
he did the Suicide Squad movie and was like, hey, this is shared universe material here.
Yeah, but it's not like they announced, hey, we're doing Suicide Squad and there's going to be a TV show that spins out of it. He made that choice after he made the movie to take the character.
No, I agree, yeah.
Yeah. So, what I'm saying is, it's just announce a TV show or a movie, whatever one you want to do first. And then when it starts, that people like it, then you can be, hey, we've got exciting news, you're getting another thing. Like, you know.
Hey, we might joke and give Yellowstone some shit lately, but hey, at least they got like, you know, they did like 5 seasons. And it's like, hey, we got a prequel, and we got something.
True.
And I don't know if they've got movies in the pipeline, but I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
I just remember thinking Last of Us again. I can totally see like these like in between seasons, like called factions or called like Fireflies. The Last of Us, you know. Like, I
yeah, I mean, it's not that different to what at one point Walking Dead was going to be doing, right? With the trilogy of movies that kind of got abandoned and just became another TV show. But
yeah, no. Instead, they just decided to split their cast up into 3 new shows.
Yeah, we got to milk it.
It's so funny. It's like you got to the end of Friends, and instead of just getting one spin-off with Joey, you get a spin-off with Joey and like Phoebe on one show, and then, you know, Chandler and Monica on another show where they're a family sitcom, and then Rachel and Ross are like a traveling couple in Europe or something, and that's the third show. It's like, that's what they did. That's how we're going to milk this for even more. We're going to split the 6 cast members up into 3 doubles and just do 3 new shows.
Hey, if they thought they could get away with it.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that those cast members were costing so much money by the time they got to that last season. But like, that's kind of what Walking Dead's done. I mean, they didn't plan it that way to begin with because the Rick stuff was supposed to be more movies, but now it's become like a limited series. So now it's just like 3 TV shows. But anyway, all right. So following up the Tomb Raider news, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is doing other stuff at Amazon too. She's renewed her deal with Amazon, and she's developing another drama called Sign Here, which is based on Claudia Luxey's novel. Sign Here, published in October by Penguin, is described as a darkly humorous, utterly gripping debut novel about a guy who works in hell. Literally. Peyote Trip has a... What's that a weird name? Peyote. Peyote Trip has a pretty good gig in the deals department on the 5th floor of hell. Sure, none of the pens work, the coffee machine's been out of order for a century, and the only drink on offer is Jägermeister, but it's still hell, and after waiting a millennium, he comes up with a plan that might just change his life and death forever.
I don't know. The only thing you could drink a Jägermeister does sound like hell.
I've never had a Jägermeister. I can't comment.
It's not good. It's there's a reason why only students drink it and mix it with Red Bull. Because it's the only way it's tolerable. And I like things that are, because it's a very bitter herbal flavor, but it's just bad.
I'll take your word for it. And sticking with Amazon really busy in the news this week. Amazon are finalizing deals for a criminal TV show. This is the Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips comic book.
Oh, yes, I did see this. This is exciting stuff.
Yeah, being adapted. So they're not really giving many details right now, but Brubaker, who's serving as executive producer and showrunner, is described as an interlocking universe of crime stories based on his award-winning comics. The writer's room is apparently set up already, and that's basically it. There's not much more to it. So I've never read the comic, but I assume that also goes through a series of different stories that sort of interconnect.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Brubaker has a lot of TV work already, so
yeah. So this is probably
very familiar with the medium.
Yeah, I wonder, do you do like short seasons based on each story, or the stories kind of short enough that you could do an episode in each one?
It varies.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. What I will say is, I saw this news, and it made me really want a series of Reckless movies. I don't know if you've read any of their Reckless stuff. I
don't think so.
They're the straight to graphic novel ones they've been doing.
No, I definitely haven't.
This is like the 5th one I got here that I've not read yet, but like all of them are so good. They're very like 70s pulp kind of detective stuff.
Okay.
I'd love a series of movies for these.
I mean, if they can capture the tone of those, because I've not read these books specifically, but I've read other Brubaker stuff. If they can capture that, and given that he's on it, they may very well capture it.
I mean, Brubaker and Phillips have a very particular tone that follows pretty much all their work.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's the important thing they need.
The question is that they get like directors and cinematographers who can kind of like do the visual live action version of that tone and style. That'd be a very interesting thing to see when it's adapted. But just from a reputation, I'm kind of excited about it, even though I've never read any of them. Mm-hmm. So, fair play. Next up, Annette Bening is going to headline Peacock's upcoming limited series, Apples Never Fall. It's her return to TV after 20 years, give or take. The last thing she was in TV was...
Before you go any further,
what?
That title has me very concerned for this description, because this sounds like it's going to be some going back home to family.
Apples Never Fall. So the last time she was in a TV thing was a TV movie on HBO called Mrs. Harris. And she played herself once in an episode of The Sopranos. That's the extent of her TV
that
career.
Doesn't count.
She's still in it.
Yes, but that's not TV work. That's a cameo.
You don't know how big of a part it was. I bet there's an example I could probably think of where someone played themselves for an extended period, like in a show, because that was the running gag. I'm sure it's happened in a comedy.
The repeated cameo.
Shut up. All right. Okay. Chris Sweeney's also been added to the cast from The Tourist. Sorry, not to the cast. Sorry, he's going to direct multiple episodes. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's based on Liane Moriarty's novel. That same author as Big Little Lies and Nine Perfect Strangers, which have already been adapted into limited series.
Right. Okay.
So this is from showrunner Melanie Marnich and Universal International Studios. Apples Never Fall centers on the Delaney's, who from the outside appear to be an inviolably contended family. Contented family. Former tennis coaches Joy and Stan are parents to 4 adult children. After decades of marriage, they finally have sold their famed tennis academy and are ready to start what should be their golden years of their lives. But after Joy disappears, her children are forced to re-examine their parents' marriage and their family history with fresh eyes. I think Dark Family Secrets. Yeah, I think that applies to that one. It's not what you were expecting, but
it's not. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that's Apples Never Fall, which I do think is a good title because it's like it's got a sound to it, and you can sort of instantly get what it's kind of like talking about, despite the fact that it's not literally what it's about.
Yeah,
I appreciate that in a title. It's better than just, children can be like their parents. That'd be the boring version of the title.
That would never, ever, ever be the title.
I don't know. CBS may call.
Shay.
All right, next up, Trevor Noah's Day Zero Productions is developing a series based on Keith Lehman's coming-of-age novel Long Division. The book was published in 2021. It explores family, hope, grief, love, and race through poetic language and satire. So there's potential here for the description to hit on some things. It weaves together the coming-of-age stories of two... oh god, what's that word? Citoyen? Citoyen.
Citoyen, maybe?
Citoyen?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's Citoyen City Colson, so it's like cities in quotation marks.
Yeah.
But anyway, from different time periods in the coastal community of the Mellahachie, Mississippi. One lives in 2013, where after an onstage meltdown during a nationally televised quiz contest, he becomes an overnight YouTube celebrity and is sent to stay with his grandmother in Malachete. That's kind of going home. Where a young girl named Baze Shepherd has recently disappeared. Before leaving, City is given a strange book called Long Division, which tells the story of a city Coulson in 1985. These stories of these two cities and the incredible cast of characters that surround them untimely converge in the city's grandmother's backyard, where the truth of Baze's disappearance is revealed. So clearly we're going to get both stories, and then eventually they sync up or whatever.
They made that sound a lot more convoluted than I think it actually is.
Yeah. But hey, so that's Long Division. Hey, Long Division is pretty complicated, so maybe they're just living up to the...
Yeah, it is effort.
The title. Alright, Peacock is doing a show called Cleo, a 1-hour dramedy from writer Jessica Runk, Jane the Virgin developer showrunner Jenny Snyder-Urman, and Aaron Kaplan's Capital Entertainment. So there you go. Cleo revolves around Cleopatra, an overqualified young woman who is forced to hide her intelligence behind makeup, clothes, and men to earn respect she needs to hang onto her job, being Queen of Egypt. A dramatic comedy set in ancient Egypt that proves not much has changed in 2,000 years. Cleo shares the feminist take of Urman's Peabody Award-winning Jane the Virgin. So they're doing like a modern feminist story, but it's Cleopatra in Egypt.
I would like to say, one, a lot has changed in 2,000 years. Thank you very much.
Obviously,
no, but I just I have a particular gripe with some of these style of shows, not shows, but like movies, things where.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that this is supposed to just be modern day problems in this ancient Egypt setting, and it's not supposed to be historically accurate.
No, I agree, but there's something about some like period pieces, whatever the period, where they just feel so alien and wrong to us because they're so different, even though, because that's what it was like. I just prefer that style of, storytelling in anything. But this, I mean, it might still be fine though. It's still enjoyable.
Well, we're heading over to CBS. They've got 2 new shows, and
okay.
This is wrapping us up. They only ordered 2 drama pilots this season, which is quite low. It's the lowest they've ever ordered.
That's because they've renewed probably everything.
So, First up, there's a spin-off for The Good Wife. Good Wife's getting another show, but this time back on network TV.
Is it The Good Wives?
No. There's no title for it yet, so unknown. But it had a spin-off already that was on their streaming service, and this is back to being another show on network TV.
The Good Wife universe.
Yeah. So Elsbeth Tassione is an astute but unconventional attorney. Was a breakout character on The Good Wife when she heavily recurred. She reprised her role in a few episodes of The Good Fight, which is the second show, which I could never have told you if it hadn't told me to.
No, not a chance.
Elsbeth is now getting her own show in which she will utilize her singular point of view to make unique observations and corner brilliant criminals alongside the NYPD.
So it's a Fox show.
It's a CBS show.
Yeah, but they stole Fox's format for a bit.
Okay. But yeah, she's an attorney.
Wait, did we make that a drinking rule?
What?
It's buddy cop, but one of them's...
Yeah, we did. I don't know if this quite qualifies, because it just says she works with the police. I don't know if it doesn't mention like a partner.
That's true, I suppose.
I'm not sure if I would say that qualifies as that. Then the second show CBS have ordered is Matlock, which you might have heard of because it's a sort of new version of an old show. Written by Jane the Virgin creator, Jenny Snyder Irwin, there's that name again, so she's getting around. And inspired by the classic TV series starring Andy Griffith. After achieving success in her younger years, the brilliant septuagenarian, I had to really think about that one, there's a lot of letters in that word, Madeline Matlock, played by Kathy Bates, rejoins the workforce at a prestigious law firm where she uses her unassuming demeanor and wily tactics to win cases and expose corruption from within.
Ooh.
And apparently it will have some ties to the original show, so it's kind of like a legacy sequel series, I guess.
So it's a legacy legal drama.
LLD, yeah.
It's the best kind.
LLD, the legacy legal drama. Yeah, I have nothing to add about either of those shows. They both sound like...
They were bland and boring CBS shows.
To go back to DC Comics, they both sound like my kryptonite, so I think that's... That'll call it on the news this week. Thank the DC News for giving us like 45 minutes of conversation on that one section.
Hey, we milked plenty out of Last of Us as well, given that was a very small news announcement, ultimately.
Well, you know, whatever it is. That's been the show. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, check out all the reviews going out. Last of Us is getting reviewed every week, so look out for episode 4 on Monday or maybe Tuesday. It was Tuesday last week. It just kind of depends. I watched the episode twice this past week and took notes and stuff, and like, you know, went full hog because the episode deserved it. And of course, the new Quantum Leap's back. You can see a review of that with me and Tara. They did a time loop episode this week. The title of the episode, so it's a time loop episode. The title, Connor, was Leap, Die, Repeat.
Oh,
it's good.
I like it. I approve.
It's good. And the gimmick is that every time it looped back, he was in a different character's body for the loop.
Oh, that's actually a really nice twist on the formula.
It is.
And I can appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah, so reviews of that coming out. And then, of course, head over to MailFuzz Movies and you'll see new episodes of Collector's Cut. We just finished working through 70s disaster movies, just finished. And starting this weekend, the same time this episode goes out, we're starting the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. So head over there if you want to see some thoughts on those.
I know we don't usually talk about it that often, but given all the news that we had, there is a comic book YouTube channel as well where we talk about all the DC comics. That's
true. Comics for the Multiverse is home to the DC Comics podcast. So I will likely talk about a lot of the same news I did today with Matt tomorrow on the Comics podcast. But yeah.
But there are reviews. I mean, not of specifically a lot of those things because a lot of them are older comics, but you know, Supergirl, you know, Woman of Tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a playlist there with all the reviews of all those issues on that channel. That's very true. So you can check out that if you want. Otherwise though, you know, just like, subscribe. You can go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us on a monthly basis to help keep all the content coming, or just hit us with a one-time super thanks or something like that. Or of course, you know, just generally spread the word and share us out on the social medias and things like that. I'll just thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Bornow, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Al Treisman. And thank you to all of you who watch and listen and support and everything else. Thank you very much. We are done. That has been the TV news. That's been almost cancelled. We'll see you next time. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?